events that we throw to be based on, the foundational values. And we did this great process where it's just like popcorn style. Everybody who's there shouts out the first things that bubble up, and we write them on sticky notes and put them on the wall. And then, so that happens until the sort of like popcorn stops popping. And then we step back and we pile sort and organize those values into the things like where they group. And out of that process, we arrived at 7 core values. Actually, in the first inception there were 5, and we've added 2 since then. But we arrived at 7 core values through that process that have remained as our core values, and they're like our touchstone for Lucidity. And everything that we do, we ask the question, is it aligned with that? And those core values are participation and immersion in the artistic process, personal growth and healing, awaken aware consciousness, environmental and social responsibility, communal reciprocity, and transparency.
Feel it!
I think for me personally, operating under a state of allowance, very tired too. Operating under a state of allowance for all beings to do, see, feel whatever they need to honor themselves in their path. Allows me to, I think that acceptance allows people to come feel a part of what we're doing. Can you repeat the question for me?
I just want to acknowledge that these guys are working so hard.
The glue.
Fortify our connection.
By loving each other,
Very good.
communicating.
I love you.
Yeah, that's what I would say is the bottom line is love. Because isn't that what everyone comes here and receives from everyone? There's a level of acceptance that you just don't get anywhere. You could just come, be who you are, create what you want to create, express what you want to express, and there's this level of love and acceptance in everyone's eyes that you walk by that's so magical and so healing and so nurturing. And that's one thing that we all as a family go and take out into the world, because we get filled by these festivals, really filled in our soul, because we're also reconnecting with our soul family. Because as you come more and more, you begin to meet and realign with the soul family that came here at this point to evolve and be on this planet and help with the shift that's happening now. And we all have our certain roles. And at the festivals like this is where you get to connect and meet each other and drop in. And then your friends, your family for life. And that's just gold. It's just golden. As well as knowing who you are and supporting each other and being a stand for each other's power and greatness and celebration. So, like he said, love is the bottom line, I think, in all of this.
Thank you. Yeah, all of that is so true. And I think, you know, what I've noticed here at the festival the last few days is that there's something really great in the way this is all set up, where there's these different villages and different neighborhoods. And I told the team, like, go out and film this festival as if you were, you know, dropped into the middle of a country, and there's these different tribal villages, right? And each one has its own flavor and its own language and its own rhythm. And, you know, you start to see that the layout of all of this really creates a lot of connection, because it's all these different villages and zones, and each one has, you know, as much intention and as much mythos as you want to, as far as you want to go, the way it's been set up. And yet it really encourages people to move from zone to zone. Like it has this beautiful nomadism where every time I go back to the zone, I see the same core people, but the zone is filled with this flow, and it, you know, for me, I like if we took an aerial shot of this, it would be amazing to see how this like natural mandala has formed, and to watch, you know, people moving like the size of ants and just kind of funneling through all these different environments. So I feel like this is one of the most unique and awesome concepts in terms of like, you know, building a template that offers a lot of connection between, you know, between individuals and then between larger groups. And, you know, I feel like it's working on all different levels.
Thanks, Claire. Fortifying the container. That's a really common and fundamental theme for Tribal Convergence Network. The container, the space, the parameters. There's so much energy that is dynamic and has the potential to stagnate, you know, if we're not constantly moving through obstacles and issues that come up, as Jonah coined it, delicious dilemmas that come up in, you know, the production aspect and just in our co-creation. And so holding counsel, our ways of being with each other, our ethics, our values, the way we address tension, the way we come together and facilitate communication, all of that is super vital. And, you know, the gender alchemy, the rise of the sacred feminine and masculine as co-creators together. And so just this constant weaving and reinforcing to establish the boundaries and the containment to allow the flow and process to keep moving.
I think what's really connecting us is source. As these festival containers are supporting us in each coming into touch, into alignment, into a resonance with our own source, that's opening a portal to the divine source that connects us all, and that's connecting all of what we do into one greater picture, which to me feels like us answering the call of the planet at this time, each in our own ways. And I really love what Michael Mead offered, you know, that we used in the episode, where he talks about when you find your inner genius, when you find your inner gift and you give that, you're automatically contributing to the world. And as we each find what is our own gift, we contribute that to the world, and we are woven together in this thing that we can't see from where we are at, but we can feel that we are all a part of. And I think that this is what this whole movement is making possible.
Thank you, JK.
That all really speaks for me in terms of connection, but I'll go back to the fortify, because what's coming through as I'm kind of listening to these reflections that are really similar to what I would have said, what I would like to add is the fortification is making this generative is invaluable. In fact, it's non-negotiable. Like, this is vital that we learn how this becomes generative for our future generations, how it becomes generative for those people who put so much of their life force into producing and holding this container, how it's generative for the earth. How do we allow these to be generative, and that's going to fortify these connections. Another thing that I came through with was initiation. That what fortifies us is inclusivity and tolerance. What fortifies us is each one of us have kind of come in to this, and so in order for that fortification of the connective tissue to be solid and healthy, I always find myself with like noticing the, I want to say nuance, are the young ones, or the up-and-coming ones, or the awakening ones, the brand new to this whole thing ones. And so the fortification for me is making sure there's this like inclusivity and welcoming people to the table, knowing that they have those gifts GK spoke of, and then unless everyone is fully bringing that forward, there's always going to be like this continued separation. And my hope is to just continue to fortify this concept of like we're always bringing in the fresh, the new, the evolutionary process until we become this more amassed collective of connected tissue, healthy, thriving connective tissue. So that's all I would add to the genius that just came erupting from the stage up here. And my last question, because I want to honor people's tired and time, and we're going to do a little music after this. The last question is along the themes of healing. The film really touched. I was really proud of my dear friends GK and Akira for being willing to go to a place of touching something that, you know, we do so much work to shine the good light on what we do here in a culture that often is misunderstanding and wants to continue to kind of keep separate what we are really emerging with. And so to touch on certain themes was potent, and I bow to the courageousness of bringing that forward, because if we're unwilling to look at the shadow element of any of this, then it's going to continue to be the very thing that will crack the foundation of everything that is gorgeous, that's birthing. And so with healing, my question is essentially, you know, how are transformational festivals a microcosm of the healing that's really like called for on the planet right now? Like, how is it that like what we do here is answering that call for the healing that needs to happen on the planet?
I guess I'll speak to Lucidity in particular, and how Lucidity answers that question and is a microcosm for healing. And I'd also like, as part of the answer to that question, to speak about my own personal practice that I find to be of paramount importance in terms of my healing, and that's my dream practice, and lucid dreaming in particular. And you know, there's so much complex processes that are happening in our psychologies and from our histories of upbringing and all of our accumulated experiences with our families and society that create these things, these blockages, these energies that stick with us. And sometimes we don't know that they stick with us. And they're deep in there in the subconscious. And through a practice of conscious dreaming, you can actually tap into that subconscious consciously and bring the things that are in the unconscious, the shadows in the closets that sort of pull the strings without you being fully aware of what they look like. When you become lucid in your dreams, you can confront those things, because nightmares, things chasing you, you can turn around and ask them a question and understand that those things are aspects of yourself that are coming at you, and they have a message for you, as scary as it may be, and to confront that fear head on and just see it, dialogue with it, understand it, and then recognize that that experience in your dream state is a reflection of your waking state. And then you can bring all of the wisdom that you've learned from those dream characters and that experience of confronting fear back into your waking state. And that's been a profound place of healing for me, especially around experiences from my childhood. And yeah, lucid dreaming, lucidity, clarity.
I see the festival scene as a microcosm for the healing happening on the planet. Much like I see my personal journey in healing, healing self, that's where it all begins. In the festival scene, we have a lot of people experiencing deep healing of their wounds that almost immediately manifests outward. And I think we see it all over the place in the smiles and the tears and the overflowing of joy and love that's being shown all around us. Really grateful for all of the healing that we're co-creating together here on the planet with each other.
I just want to acknowledge Alan. He has held an amazing space for the healing aspect of what we have going on here.
Well, the festival itself obviously is amazingly healing, beyond our comprehension, really. And if you step away from the planet and you would just look at this point in the planet, you'd probably see all this energetic light coming from this place, from our consciousness, from our healing, from our connection, from our love. And then you'd see this light kind of rippling out as it goes, and you go home to your family and you give them more love and you give them more consciousness, and you learn something there that you're going to bring there. So it's incredibly healing for the culture that ripples out beyond what anyone can comprehend, because it's so intricate and it's so unique. And the teachers here and the wisdom, this is really a spiritual journey for everyone. And on the same level, it's really a spiritual journey for everyone, where it's not always easy to get here on many levels, financially, physically, dealing with your life, dealing with your family. So it's a whole process to get here and stick with this, and you get these jewels along the way, and it's like a magical mystery tour. There's synchronicity, and you meet that person, and wow, there's that, and all of a sudden a new beloved comes into your life, or whatever the journey is. So on the macrocosm level, it's consciousness raising for the whole culture in many, many ways. And on a personal level, it's extremely transformational. And it's as much as you want to go into it, there it shows up for you.
Well said. Beautiful. I don't know how to articulate what I'm thinking right now, but I'd like to think, the personal transformation, even if it's just making a major lifestyle change for someone who comes out here and wants to take one aspect of their life in a different direction, if they want to give more or be healthier or become an artist, whatever it might be. I strongly believe that's the first building block, and that's a fundamental step, is the personal love and healing and forgiveness, things that we carry. And what I'm feeling is that I'd like to think that we are releasing a lot of that for generations to come, and there will be perhaps less layers. I believe that there'll always be the light and the shadow, because that's how you create depth. That's what creates us as dynamic. That's why we're dynamic human beings. That's why we're here. And but I'd like to think that the shadow will evolve and will look different, and that the layers of generational healing across the planet will begin to change and shift, and perhaps become lighter or become focused on things that are more in the present and less things that were carried by our mothers and fathers and their mothers and fathers. So in times where I really feel like I can see clearly, way into the future, I see that as, we're doing so much as this transitional tribe, and we're going like extra hard to do the work. And I feel like that's the real altruistic reason why. It's not for any selfish reason. It's not for any feeling a person. There's a personal release, and there's there's joy in that. But I feel like that's really the reason, is for the young ones and the new ones.
From the personal healing, we are able to extend it out to our loved ones and our community, and we're in this creation of what the new village looks like. And so there's this social healing that's taking place, that kind of tying this all back together, that we are experimenting and working with different templates. We are downloading new wisdoms and going back to ancient wisdoms and integrating for the times of now. in this context of community and co-creation and culture, there is social healing around the ways that we've been living that no longer serve our higher purpose. And so as we let go of the systems that no longer serve us, and we are now creating the new systems that are furthering our life purpose on a collective level, we're living into our future. And that in and of itself feels like the healing that we need to see and experience to affirm the path that we are walking very bravely, very courageously. And we come together to reinforce and affirm what's working and how we get to keep playing with each other.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, we were having this exact conversation with one of our interviewees today, and the story she shared was that last night she'd had this extremely traumatic experience in the past year, and then last night she was here at the festival and was kind of like moving through it and feeling this like just moving through it and feeling this need to purge, to purge and get it out, and she just told me the story of how. And the reason we interviewed her was she knows one of our crew, and not super well. Hadn't seen him for like a year, maybe had met each other a few times over the past couple of years, and so she was in this state, and they met each other, like encountered each other, and he and then also another friend were able to just hold space for her while she went and just like moved through what she was working through, and just like purged it out, and people just held that space. And I think the fact that we're creating a culture where we all kind of know how to do that, we all know how to hold that space for each other, where it's not something scary or we're not freaked out, but we know what's going on, and pain is part of being human, and so much disease and dysfunction comes from holding pain inside, whereas the natural reaction is to like move the pain through. And the child is a great example of that. Child falls down, feels pain. Crying is the release of the pain, but we've developed a culture where you're supposed to not cry because we've misinterpreted the crying as the experience of the pain, where actually the crying is the release of the pain. So I think we're finding our way back to a culture where we can kind of all hold that space for each other, which just allows us all to release those things instead of holding it inside ourselves, where they become all those diseases. And I think the fact that we're all knowing how to do that is creating the possibility of creating a world where we can all really move through our pain to become whole humans and really fulfill the potential, this amazing potential that we all have.
Thank you for that. It's really potent. What came up for me, again, it's so great to go last because I could be like everything they said. And a key that, my background is a body worker and a healer first before I came into event production. And I came into event production as part of my healing path. And so what really came through that wanted to be shared was this essence of divine sovereign authority. That there's this mythos of separation in our culture. And my very dear friend Shiva Ladarmi gave me a key several years ago, that this essence of you are your own divine sovereign authority. And there's nothing outside of you that has authority. There's this mythos that keeps us in a place as a culture. This is more cultural than personal body healing, but as a cultural healing, what I witness is this essence of the invitation to arrive fully in yourself, to walk as the divine sovereign authority. There's no real authority necessary, and look how humans function quite well together. And we talked about this on a panel earlier. There's more of a collaborative model of we're all accountable and we're all showing up to do the good work. that it takes to make this happen, and isn't this a model for what's possible in the rest of the world? So we're really learning, how does this work? We're practicing with each other. And that's the healing that I really came from, is this mythos of separation that we're healing from right now. And as we heal it here, as we find that connective tissue, we find that inspiration, weaving the themes back in the panel. What I witness is that indeed there is a tremendous healing, a cathartic release of an old story that's keeping us in a cycle that continues to create dis-ease and destruction, and that's not our story anymore. That's not your story. It never was. It's not any of our stories. It's certainly not my story. And so we get to ignite the new story, the new mythos, through these opportunities, and I feel like that healing is rippling for the next generations. I agree with Akira. I feel like what we're doing is we're clearing up old karma and old lineages, and that although shadow and light may still exist, and the human experience is full of those experiences, it's part of what helps us grow. What I feel is we are connected, we are united, we come together in this place of solidarity and tolerance, understanding, admitting what we don't know, like humbly coming in service and deep seva to what we don't know, but arriving in our full gift and creating containers and spaces that we welcome that we invite your expression, we invite you to come through and give your gift. You know, and isn't that really, like, doesn't that really spark the healing that comes on many levels of people just feeling their purpose and value again in a society? Whatever that may be, the broad spectrum that makes this really unique, diverse splash called this festival is these individual points of light that are all bringing their personal gift forward. And I feel like that's going to ripple, and it already has. It ripples through the whole planet. And we need each other right now. We need each other. Like, it's not negotiable. The interconnectivity of all of us, we're realizing it again. We're remembering that we are deeply connected, and whatever is keeping us in a story of separation, the dis-ease in our culture, in our hearts, I feel that is being mended here with this opportunity to come and be welcomed and be invited to the table and express yourself and do it with a lot of love, a lot of inspiration. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. So this has been our Visionary Culture panel. We like to do these sometimes, just again bring this cultural conversation, just bring some cross-section of wisdom through.